Yo, 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 it's your boy, MysterE. Look, today we're going to do an election special. I thought I would jump on this. I'm not going to lie, I'm not an expert at all when it comes to the election, but it's really exciting stuff. So let's take a look at what's
Let me
going
go. Hold
on.
on 1 second. Here we go. So
So
these
we're
were
just
all
going to
the counties, the 13 counties that were affected by the floods.
we're going to monitor kind of what people are talking about, on a couple of very different sources, and I'll provide you with kind of an Australian perspective on what's going on with these Americans, these crazy Americans. Oh my god! But you just can't get away from it at the moment. So I thought let's just have a look sees about what's going on.
Were Democrats. I'm going to keep going back to Mecklenburg when we talk about North Carolina. This is Charlotte and then the surrounding suburbs. They need to drive up the vote here. It is a majority minority county. Hispanics and African Americans, they have to drive up the numbers here. When they lose races like Senate races, it's because the turnout is not where it needs to be in Charlotte. So not enough vote there. But the good news is there is vote in other places. Wake County, this is the capital, Raleigh, part of the Research Triangle. You can see Kamala Harris slightly overperforming President Biden with 76% of the vote. Whoops, that was a mistake. Let me go back to North Carolina here. Here we go. Okay. Right over here, Durham, this is where Duke University is. 85% of the vote is in. 81%, let's see how she did compared to Biden. Slightly overperforming there and just over where UNC Chapel Hill is.
So maybe you can tell me, but this is NBC news that we're watching at the moment. I don't know. Maybe you know a little bit more about this stuff than me. I'm not sure if they are, right wing or left wing, but in America, the left wing is basically right wing, and the right wing is just ultra hardcore. So yeah, this is just the source that I've seen other people referring to, so I've picked that.
Good news for him, considering that Biden took it in 2020. We're also watching New Hanover. This is Wilmington. You have a lot of people who have moved to the east coast of North Carolina, the coastal communities here. Only 5% in, but this is also one of those counties that has always picked the winner, North Carolina. Not enough vote in to even compare it. I do want to talk about the Triad. This is, again, sometimes the forgotten metro area, but huge population center for North Carolina.
Let's have a look at something else.
Black universities
this is a bit boring.
As well.
Cruz would do. The race hasn't been called yet, but we see the vote spread here.
Fox News.
Well, my Republican sources were never really worried about the Cruz race. I think you heard more from Democratic sources that they might be able to, ride a wave of support from women in this election, and maybe potentially get Allred up over the top. Cruz historically has been fairly unpopular, as statewide go for Texas, but that doesn't seem to be the case right so far. But again, we still got 1/3 of the vote still to come in. That could change, but as these race calls go,
a lot of votes.
It becomes harder later in when you have more of the precincts reporting. It becomes a lot harder for these candidates to overtake a gap of that size. So it looks like Cruz is in pretty good position right now.
Even though Texas is a deep red state, is there anything to learn from some of the counties within a deep red state like that?
Well, it's, we've been talking about this as the gender election. And
what is that about?
Groups of voters that are not a monolith. Men and women are not monolithic. They do not vote uniformly. Okay.
What is it with Americans and this idea of he just quoted there this Fox expert, but this is a larger conversation that I've heard other people talking about. There is, in this American election, there is this idea of a gender disparity in terms of voting. So not along economic grounds like it usually is, or some other type of demographic, or not usually geographical locations. Actually, they split elections along. But in this election specifically, they're talking about gender. Now, it's so weird, right? In a country or in a time where people are complaining about how polarizing politics is, and how generally agitated people are and angry with the system at large. We see this style of breaking down this election into men versus women, as if it wasn't enough already, the various ways that we break up the large mass of the voting population like i.e. the working class, into all of these certain sections and segments, you know, so they can be divided and conquered. But now, like, we're pinning men and women against each other. Now, like, this obviously, like, my commentary on this doesn't come from a place of complete ignorance. Like, I'm fully aware of this Roe versus Wade scenario that happened. So there was an instance in the Supreme Court in the US where there was a very instrumental case, a precedence, which, you know, kind of supported the notion of abortion rights. That was kind of overturned by a conservative group within their judicial system, so their Supreme Court. Now, like, taking away that decision or overturning that decision obviously has had ramifications on the entire nation in terms of how abortion rights are to be handled across the country. So what I'm trying to say is that this decision has effectively devolved the powers over abortion rights to the states so they can make up their individual choices. So that has become a huge election issue in the 2024 race, because obviously Trump represents the conservative element, which were the people that overturned this decision, and Harris has been platforming on this idea that, like, you know, Trump's coming to take away your freedoms, so your rights, your right to choose, bodily autonomy. And so there's this idea that this election is being split amongst men and women, which is, like, it's crazy to think about. It really is mind-boggling that, like, if you could just take, like, the one area in, like, the demographic of an electoral base, right, of voters, etc. If you could take, like, one kind of metric or way of splitting people up that you think was sacred, like, between men and women, you could at least agree that, like, kind of, we're all the same, men and women. We're all just one big voter base kind of thing. They've split it along this ground as well. So I think it's actually quite spectacular how the Americans are dividing, again, their culture, their society into two camps, and they're pinning men and women against each other. It's incredible how, like, their society works, I must admit. Look, let's get back to see if there's any gold in this. I'll return to Fox News maybe a little bit later, because, like, you know, I'm only watching it for the lols. Like,
Stepping back,
it's
but will remain in
pretty
the Senate
empty
here.
kind of stuff,
So I
let's be
believe those
honest. Now,
elections take.
this is an interesting source, okay?
But Donald's only 47, right? I mean, like, he got a ways to go.
I don't know who this is, but he's a Twitcher, so I just thought he was interesting. He had, like, when I first checked him out, he had like 170,000 people watching him just, like, dribble on about the election. Like, he hasn't really said much. Maybe you know this guy. I can't pronounce his name. It's Zach Rohr.
Well, is the only path for Harris to win? Yeah, Pennsylvania is a very very uncertain thing. I mean, they only have 30% of their people that they even put in there, right?
I've just
Missouri
noticed
changed red?
a comment as well.
Let me see.
I just say this is the first time in a live stream I've ever gotten a comment that I've actually paid attention to. I did a live stream the other day, and, like, when I got off it, because I was just completely bewildered by the fact that I was trying to run, like, multiple things at the same time. You can tell live streaming is not my forte. I will practice that, but I've got one from David. So, thanks, David. Thanks for leaving me a message in the chat there. You're an absolute legend. I don't know if it really is worth watching this live stream, but I'm just trying to understand what the hell is going on in the States. So, you know, let's discover together, David. Solidarity. All right, let's see what this guy from Twitch has to say.
Come out of the commercial break, a new characterization here in Pennsylvania. Our decision desk now calling this race too close to call.
Yeah, it's obviously
Kamala
too
Harris leading right now with 34% in, but again, too close to call. We also have a new characterization on the state of Michigan with its 15 electoral votes. That will also go down in the too close to call column.
Too close to call.
These aren't surprises. These are states that we thought would keep us up late, and they will.
They will. They'll live up to their billing. We're also watching key Senate races, key House races, the balance of power.
I've seen that come up a bit on this news source that this guy keeps watching. I believe they're projecting Donald Trump to win at this stage, but from what I can understand is there is still a lot of voting to go, and some very, very key states. They're not in the running. Sorry, they haven't been finished yet in terms of their counting. Now, the American system, from what I can understand, is very, very interesting in terms of the way that they vote. Okay, so like, it's not a majority rules kind of thing. It's not like most of the votes in, I guess, yeah, like a majority of votes in terms of individual votes across the country will determine the president. No. And it's not even via like how many votes in each state kind of, well, and if you count up all the states, that will decide, you know, who the president is, which is like a system like kind of similar to what we would have in Australia. We have like, you know, you count up all of the various electorates, and then all of the various electorates will come together and form the government. So whoever's got the most seats in the most electorates form the government, and then they pick their leader from within the party, etc., etc. You usually know that before going into election day who they're going to pick. So it does become like a popularity contest. But in America with this, they have this thing called the Electoral College. So like each state has a number of votes, all right? A number assigned to it. Each state has a number assigned to it. And so it is the state that uses this number to determine who the president is. So you can see in the background there, that guy's got that picture. It says like 270. So you need to have 270 of these electoral college votes or something like that to be able to call yourself president. So, and like, it's an interesting scenario because like it can be neck and neck. And like you can even have a case where people don't hit the target properly, and then it will go to another option or something like that. So like everyone calls it the two-party system, but there is a chance that, and apparently it has happened in history where it went to like a third runner or something like that. Anyway, let's not get into those details now. So like I said, there's an electoral college vote, so there's a certain number allocated to each state, and that number, depending on the size of the state or like their political significance, that number adds to this overall number of electoral college votes. So even if, let's just say, like a majority of people in a state vote for the Democrats, let's say, the electoral college is this like group that sits, like a political group that sits above the state, and like they usually, this electoral college usually decides, oh, okay, this was like most people in the state voted for the Democrats, so we'll as the electoral college, we will put our votes for this state towards the Democratic candidate. But it doesn't have to. So like there is a complete disconnect in terms of like, I don't know, the way that they actually vote. Like voting is just like an opinion poll, and then the electoral college actually makes the decision, which is kind of strange if you ask me. Like it really is weird how they figured that out. Now, from what I understand, the reason they set up this electoral college system was actually to try and break it up. So the biggest states back in the day, when they kind of had their War of Independence, and then when they had like the Civil War and stuff like that, they would try the smaller states. The only way they could get them to the party and federate and become, you know, the United States, the only way they could get the smaller colonies to get on board was basically to kind of incentivize and give them this electoral college vote carrot. So they were like, come on, if you join the federation, we'll make it worth your while. We'll give you a few more votes to counterbalance the fact that you're such a small colony compared to the bigger East Coast colonies. And that's where this electoral system comes from. It's really, like I said, it's really strange. People would describe it, I think, and, you know, pretty aptly, as undemocratic. Like I said, it's more like the states, you know, take an opinion poll, and the electoral college that sits above it as this independent political group kind of says, hey, this is what we're going to do. And like I said, they can go against like the opinion poll in the system. But like, yeah, way to, and here's 4IS, eh? Shout out to you, 4IS. The Electoral College is good for gerrymandering too. Yeah, it really is. So thanks for the comment, 4IS. I hope you're enjoying the election. It's quite interesting, and it's keeping the Americans up late, and it's like, you know, usual daytime stuff for us. So it's good to see people on the other side of the world having to stay up late for a change when it comes to news, like groundbreaking stuff. All right, let's see what NBC
can't release any of that data until the last person has left the line, which means it's going to mean a lot more coffee tonight for people that are trying to watch the vote.
They're talking
also,
about it.
One thing to keep track of, the nonpartisan vote. That's the reason why we're in Washoe County. This is an incredibly purple county. People vote the issues. They vote their feelings. They don't vote party line, which leads us to talk about nonpartisans. It is a third of the electorate in this state. Higher share than Republicans, higher share than Democrats. These folks, we're not sure which way they're going to vote, which has been confounding pundits. And it's been really tough for people trying to read the tea leaves and what exactly the numbers mean. I've
heard this phrase a number of times, read the tea leaves of what's going on. It's funny, like the American pollsters really have like kind of no idea what's going on. And so they keep referring to it as reading the tea leaves. I think that's pretty hilarious because like in Australia, when we have these kind of election broadcasts, we have like this one guy on the ABC who's kind of like the bomb and knows everything, and you kind of get a pretty accurate picture of what's going on pretty quickly. But like, yeah, Americans keep referring to any of this type of prediction stuff, even at this stage, as reading tea leaves, which is funny. That's a reference to like people that can, you know, they at the end of their cup of tea, there's tea leaves at the bottom of it, and they can like kind of predict the future from the way that the tea leaves are shaped at the end, at the bottom of the cup. If you're not familiar with that reference, I'm just getting my tech guy. Shout out to you, 4AS. Just getting my tech guy to confirm if the audio is working. Like I said, like this is a very new phenomenon for me, doing like the live streams, and I had a lot of problems with my audio. So thank you, 4IS. Thank you for confirming that you can hear it, like the very coded way that you've responded. I can hear you, however, I'm not sure if my AirPods are not working properly. So thank you anyway. Thanks for checking. If you guys can't hear me properly, maybe just tell me in the chat and I'll do something. No problem. Thank you, 4AS. Legend. Yeah, alright, sorry, let's get back to what they're saying on NBC News. Does anyone know, like, if they're kind of left wing or right wing? I'm not across NBC.
Affordable, they find it that they can get more for their money. Because of that, housing prices have gone up. So the economy and housing prices are a huge issue in Nevada. And finally, the last point I want to bring up here is that the unemployment rate right now in Nevada is over 5%. It's the highest of any state in the entire country. So the economy is going to be huge here. And you got to remember, Trump came out with his plan about no tax on tips. You have all those service workers and those service unions in Las Vegas. Democrats quickly adopted that plan because they knew it was a good idea. Unclear if it's ever going to become law or if they can even do that. But it was a plan that caught a lot of attention in Nevada, guys.
And a populist appeal, definitely.
And I think I'm glad Tom was talking through those
populist
points here
appeal.
Because I think of Nevada and I think the economy.
So let me just get this straight. This guy's just talking about how like unemployment's an issue, housing prices are a massive issue, right? Right? And that is populist politics. Like, what the hell are politicians for? If they're not going to fix things like unemployment and making it easy for people to have somewhere to live, and that means populist politics, like, what the hell is the point of having representative government? Like, honestly, like, I'll tell you what populist is in the modern age. It's a dog whistle for the establishment. like in terms of media sources and anyone who's kind of worried about the state of affairs in the world, the big bad scary 21st century, and like it gets people riled up. Oh, we better not support this person or that person when they talk about things like, you know, like working class issue, like average people problems, like whether you can afford to live somewhere or whether you can find a job or not. Populace equals establishment disapproves of X's opinion. Yeah, I think it is like a dog whistle. Thank you, 4IS. Keeping the chat alive, brother. So yeah, look, these things are normal issues, okay? Politicians should be able to... Oh, that's the point I'm trying to make. Politicians should be making decisions or like commenting on unemployment and housing policy. There's nothing populist about that. That is actually politics. It's politics 101.
Utah take those 7 electoral votes. And we go further into the west, into Montana. 4 electoral votes. Donald Trump, the projected winner in Montana tonight. Here's the map. The road to 270. Donald Trump now with 201. Harris with 81. That's the road.
Look, I'm not sure how this is breaking down, right?
Here it is, as you might expect, too early to call. And if you
Too
remember,
early
in
to
2020,
call.
we didn't get a result in Nevada until Saturday, so we could be...
Look, it's like I said at the start, I'm not an expert in American politics, but like 200 to 80, and like the figure to get to is 270 to become president. Like that's a massive difference. And like all of the people I was speaking to, you know, all of like the 5 people I was speaking to about the U.S. election beforehand, they're all just like, everyone's saying Kamala Harris is got it in the bag. And like, unless like there is some bunch of states or something like that that are about to come out and like provide a lot more clarity to what's going on here, there's a massive difference between 200 and 80. I wonder what that's about.
Too close to call. That's another one that may take several days before we get results. So let's go to Tom. And I really, Pennsylvania, we cannot talk about it enough. It may all hinge on Pennsylvania just as it did in 2020.
Yeah, and earlier I was talking about Eastern PA, guys, not to talk about Western PA. Go Steelers fans. Let's start in Pittsburgh, Allegheny County.
You see how close that is?
66% of the vote, and let's compare it to 2020.
Oh, wait, sorry, I read that wrong.
Slightly overperforming. That's good news for Harris because that's what she needs to do there if she wants to win the state of Pennsylvania. And look at this, Butler County. You'll remember that's where that first assassination attempt took place, just miles from Pittsburgh. Look what a different place this is.
All right, maybe I did read that right.
71% of the vote is in. He got 65 in 2020, 65%. He's now at 64. He's essentially...
So this is the place where Trump got shot. That's mental, isn't it? Wow.
Issue here, Vice President Harris.
It's ground zero, man. This is the day. This is the place where Trump took a bullet for the nation.
Yeah, we did compare it to 2020. It's about the same. Westmoreland right next to here. It butts up against Allegheny County. 47% of the vote is in. He's at 65. So he's kind of where his marks were in 2020. Remember, he has to do a little bit better. Erie's the one that we're going to be watching. This is the big swing county. We only have 1% in. The reason why we're watching this is because Erie almost always picks the winner of the election here. But we only have 1% in Erie County. But we'll be watching that. Let's move east now because I know we have a lot of people from the Philadelphia area on the anchor desk tonight. See what's happening over there. Let's start in Chester County. Okay, so I'm going to give a quick whip around here. 2020, remember. So Harris has to drive up the vote in the suburbs just like Biden did and try to turn out that vote in Philadelphia County. So Chester's one of those ring counties. Let's move over to Delaware County here. She's overperforming there. Only a quarter of the votes in. Let's get to Philadelphia County here. 79%. She's going to want to increase those numbers. Again, we're still waiting on a lot of the vote. It's still very early. Remember, some of these counties are going to report late. Monco, 28% in, 69% overperforming there. This is where Governor Shapiro is. You may remember that. She closed out her final ad sitting right next to Governor Shapiro, making sure the people of Pennsylvania saw that. And then I want to park on Bucks for a while, and then I want you guys to talk a little bit about Bucks. 24% in, but this is the county, the ring county around Philadelphia, one of those collar counties that Republicans thought they could make some inroads here. More working class in some of those neighboring suburb areas, counties.
Let's have a look at this. Oh no. Let's get back to this first.
To do better. I'm going to look at one more area before I send it to you guys. This is the swing here. Northampton almost always picks the winner in Pennsylvania. This is Easton, this is Bethlehem, that's that whole Lehigh Valley area there. Biden was at 49. Harris was right there. Look, guys, it's tough to draw any kind of information on who's on top or who's lower right now. Still too close to call. Trump's on top at only about 17,000 votes. You remember the spread in 2020 was about 80,000 votes. So a lot of votes still out here. One thing I do want to mention, there was an exit poll out of Pennsylvania on Latino voters, and they broke for Trump in a major way. That could possibly be a deciding effect here in Pennsylvania, because you're talking about 600,000 Latinos that are registered to vote. Guys, back to you.
Can we talk a minute about the amount of money that is spent in some of these races?
And it's such a key state, apparently.
Biden, Harris, plus the DNC, $131.7 million.
Yeah, 314 million, I think, overall when you add both campaigns together.
Anyone in the chat, please tell me.
That's right.
Tell me what you're
That's right.
thinking at this stage. If you have any opinions on who's actually going to win it, or if you have any opinions on who you'd prefer to win it. It's always interesting to see that type of stuff. I'm just looking at like a map of the US at the moment, and yeah, Pennsylvania very close on the old, like right in the thick of like the East Coast. So that's why it must be so important. And it's really weird that it's like half and half at this point.
Hispanic population in Pennsylvania, especially in that Lehigh Valley.
That's right. You're also, there's a big Puerto Rican population in Pennsylvania too, the most of any
All right,
background.
let's
so let's
talk about
where
this
that is.
race
And I want to start
thing.
with
Like,
the national
honestly,
Latino vote here in Savannah.
the national
Love you for the grain of
Latino
salt
vote.
caveat. We know
Look
how
at
these
this.
exit polls.
They're breaking it down by race. By race. The
Former
Americans.
President Trump, 53% to 45%. This is nationwide. But the number that you want to look at is this 45%. That is because...
He is entertaining. I'll give you that. Like content creators or like even comedians, they will have, you know, a good run if he gets back in. Like, I think that's what people have missed as well. Like, Biden was so lackluster, and it's probably not because he's just like looked like he was going to have a stroke, but like he was just not entertaining like Trump. So everyone was kind of like, after, you know, so many years of just being given endless material, Biden was just too plain after that. He was just all about like governing the country as opposed to actually, you know, riling people up and giving the like news outlets something to talk about. The cats and dogs speech. Yeah. Yes, I did. I'm not too across exactly what was going on with that, but like from what I understand is there's like Haitian migrants or immigrants that were in a certain area, and like they've completely invaded some part of some, I don't know, some American city or something like that, or town or suburbs, who knows. But like the allegations were that, like, you know, because things are so dire, like people's cats and dogs are disappearing, and like these Haitian migrants were eating them. And so like people were like going after Trump hard about that and like giving him a real hard time. Like I heard a song remixing him singing about they're eating the cats and dogs, like kind of thing. So yeah, look, I want to talk about this race thing. It's so weird. Okay, like as somebody who is in Australia, if like for any reason, like on election day, like we started getting all of these like weird analyses coming up of like tables and stuff, and just being like, I don't know, the Aussie vote or the Anglo vote versus the I don't even know how they would break it down. Like, what's the biggest demographic as like the Chinese vote versus the Arabic vote or something like that? Like, it's very, very strange how important the racial divide is in that country. Now, I can tell you what it's about from, like, you know, a anti-capitalist perspective, all right? So America has been obviously founded on the fact that, like, basically racism is part of the way they control the working class. There's been certain points in American history at its founding, during the Civil War, and like periods after the Civil War, like immediately after the Civil War, where like the American working class, so whites and blacks, were working together, and like that was terrifying the establishment, the political establishment, the economic rulers at those times, and so like they deliberately disseminated, you know, like media, like newspaper articles, like spread lies and paranoia to split the American working class. Low 760. Hello, I was on Geordie's pod. Would be good if you two went on together. Yeah, that would be nice. Maybe one day when I've got a bit more notoriety. But I'm just not in Friendly Geordie's leagues or on his radar at the moment. But like, you know, he's doing a live stream. And I spoke to him like briefly before it. And I think he was just trying to test the grounds to see what my opinion was from a, as he likes to say, a commie perspective. I'd like to say anti-capitalist, but like, let's go with commie. So yeah, he was probing me before he went on to his live stream. I was watching his one before. So if you've gone over there and seen it, it's, yeah, he seems as awkward as I do in terms of the live stream world. He's obviously someone who he films, he edits, he releases content kind of thing. So like live streaming, you have to kind of get used to, I don't know, just rambling on non-stop. Also, some states have 50 electoral. Yes. I think like, so we were talking about electoral college votes in the chat. Like, I think on the West Coast, there's like they have 50 between Los Angeles, San Francisco. Like there's 50 something electoral college votes. It's a massive number compared to like some other states and stuff like that. I guess there's just a lot of people that live on the West Coast in that state. So yeah, some states, yes, do heavily outnumber others in terms of their weighting, and like obviously they're like, we're moving across from east to west, and so we're going to get the East Coast count coming in. He's been doing live pods for weeks on the Jordan Shanks, but for the pod, yeah, actually, you know what? He's been doing the podcast stuff for a while. Let's be honest. California. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of the state. Thank you though, David. Legend. And for his self-help. Yeah, okay, sorry. Yes, he does do a lot of live stuff on the mic, I guess. So he's probably across it. I can't understand why Project 2025 wasn't pushed hard. I don't know. Like, do you mean from like whose perspective? From Trump's perspective? Or like, you mean the Democrats weren't pushing that one harder to try and get people off? Yeah, what's going on with Project 2025? I don't know. I've just heard like a lot of like, you know, leftist commentators just like trying to completely undermine their Republican adversaries, by talking about Project 2025 for the Dems. Yeah, why wouldn't they push that more? Why wouldn't they go on about that? You know, it seems like some like easy, like low hanging fruit. Just go after these big issues, like I was talking about before with the whole Roe versus Wade thing, like with abortion rights. They were attacking that massively, and I think like that's the Democratic playbook to a large degree. I've read a book on it recently. It's called "Hit 'Em Where It Hurts." I don't know if you've come across this book. The Heritage Foundation history goes back to Reagan. Yeah, the Heritage Foundation is pretty scary. But like, talk about organized. Like the Republicans and like conservative think tanks, like they are so organized when it comes to like right-wing politics or conservative politics in the States. He handed out their wish list when he got it. Yeah, that's what these, okay, so these American think tanks, these organizations, they like literally, they have like teams of lawyers, they develop legislation and policy kind of thing, and they print it out and they just hand it to Republican politicians and candidates. So candidates, when they're running for office, they give it to them and say like, just read off this, we've got you covered, and they tell them what to speak about, and then they literally draft legislation for them. And so like all the Republicans from like the local level, so the county level to the state level to the federal level, are all singing off the same song sheet It's incredible. And it's like, yes, and the libs here do something similar. Like, and that's the thing, like, this is my theory, like, when it comes to the left and the right in politics. Like, just generally in liberal democratic nations, like the conservative side of politics, so like the right wing side of politics, like so much more organized when it comes to like legality, like legislation, policy creation, like all that sort of stuff. Like they have machines built in where they have armies of people that just like print stuff off, and like everyone just sings from the same song sheet kind of thing. Who wrote Hit 'Em Where It Hurts? Giving me more books to read. Yeah, and like it's a very interesting book. Let me just show you. Hit 'Em. It's not on Audible or something like that. Like I remember 4AS, Jerry from the area, he tried to check it out because he wanted to read it, but it wasn't there. Hit 'Em Where It Hurts. What's her name? Who's Rachel? Book. Bitekoffer? Rachel Bitekoffer? I want to say. Bitkoffer? Kofer? Yeah, Hit 'Em Where It Hurts. It's like, so there's like this, American, obviously. But she's a Democrat kind of strategist, political strategist, and like she goes hard and kind of breaks down what's going on with like American politics, especially at the federal level. But she goes into state politics and all that sort of stuff, and like decodes the Republican strategy, like their playbook. And it's like all about like all of the worst identity politics type of stuff that you've ever heard. Rachel, that's the one. You got it, 4AS. Yeah. Who wrote Him Where It Hurts? The Dems, Heritage Foundation. Yeah. Libs here do the similar thing with sacking public servants. Yeah, they do. They're definitely quick to gouge out the public service. And isn't that what like Elon Musk is supposed to do? Like if Trump gets in, like Elon Musk is going to be the head of some like productivity commission. G'day. Yes. It's the wings of cheese today. I can't keep up with you, wings of cheese. You change your pseudonyms all the time. Gumma Cheese Wing is back. So yeah, look, it's an interesting book, and the American political system is completely riddled with identity politics now. Like, don't get me wrong, it was always pretty intense in terms of like how people segmented themselves along like tribal lines and stuff like that. But like this woman's strategy basically is just like, it's in the title, Hit 'Em Where It Hurts. It's just like, this is what the Republicans do to stir up fear and like win votes. We will do the same thing. And so like, you know, if that's your strategy, is just like fight fire with fire, and the fire is raging and it's burning the world down. Like, look, I get if that's what you want to do, you just want to win the next election, but like, you know, it's not good for the human race. I have a litany of usernames. You do. Quite the mystery, might I say. All right, so let's see what's going on with our friends over in America. I should spend some more time with them. I'm just rambling on in the chat.
That perhaps there was going to be a wave of independent women who could somehow turn this red state blue, but this was not to be, Chuck.
No, I mean, look, this is a...
I haven't, Jacob. I haven't read it. I must say, I am not that down with, like, kind of critical anarchist literature. I'm not proud of it. I do seem to spend a lot more time on the Marxist side of traditional left-wing culture. Literature. But I look, I understand kind of the premise of what the anarchists are about in this sense, and so like maybe it's something that like I should be researching, and then we can do a video on to talk about it properly. But like, yeah, I do need to spend a bit more time with anarchists, because like, you know, it's really hard to put yourself on a political spectrum, to be honest. Yes, God in the state, so that's Bakunin, I believe. He's crazy, Bakunin, because like he was actually Karl Marx's rival. So it's so good to see someone who actually went up against Karl Marx and gave it to him. Is cool, but extremely old. Yes, I know. A lot of this stuff is really outdated, and it seems archaic as when you're reading it. But like, you know, I think, despite the fact that the examples people refer to, like in their sense being contemporary, but like, while the examples they might refer to are outdated, and even the notions are outdated, like the lessons I think is still pertinent, and there's some good takeaways in all of this. This stuff. So like, you know, I never disparage going, you know, 150 years back to read what the conversation was like, because like the correlations you can draw between what's going on back then in, you know, the height of the Industrial Revolution to now what's happening, it's pretty scary sometimes how close we can compare these things. Anyway, I did say I was going to go back and listen to some more of these Americans go on about what's happening on the other side of the world right now. Well, they should be sleeping, apparently.
I mean, those issues, bread and butter issues, and that is how they talk to them. I'm not saying Democrats weren't, but for the sort of the cultural issues don't play as well with Hispanic voters as they may.
Again, they're on about the race thing. Like, I think I finished off my point before, but it was basically like, Americans specifically manufactured their racial divides in order to kind of dominate the working class or split the majority of people up. And like the way they analyze it in politics is just astounding. Like they actually measure those things. I'm just struggling to see how you would do that in Australia. Yeah, would you like talk about Arab voters or something like that? Would you talk about Chinese voters and like split Australia into grounds like that? I don't know how you would do that. Yeah. How good's the elevator music? Ecology has, yeah. They still have a lot to offer. We shouldn't just stop at the classics. No. God, I love the classics though. Hey, I've been trying to read the Grundrisse recently, like Karl Marx's The Grundrisse. So these are the notes that influenced Das Kapital and led to a lot of his theory, but like primarily Das Kapital. And like, whoa, my God. Yeah, talk about abstract. My God. Let's go back to the Twitch guy. He seems funny. Does anyone know this Twitcher? Alright. Oh,
VA's back to blue. Yeah. Oh shit! I forgot all about Virginia. Oh damn! You're right. Damn, bro. Uh-oh. Refresh it.
Everyday Americans. Yeah, that's why we have media. 4AS. To tell us what everyday people like us are thinking. I don't know. Is that what this person's name is? I thought it was like Zach Carrar or something like that. He's an interesting character. Why are you watching as Mongold? Okay, is that it? That's this person, obviously. You guys know him. I don't know. Like, I went onto Twitch just to find someone. I was looking at Hassan, and like Hassan had like 250,000 people watching him, and I didn't think I needed to give him any else. This guy had about like 170 something thousand watching him. But like, I don't know what his score is. I think he's a gamer. So I'm not sure what he's talking about politics for, but I think everyone's talking about the U.S. election though. And like, you know, hence why I'm here. I wanted to get on the gravy train as well. Yeah.
Now, there's where things stand. Donald Trump out with 207. And we're able to make a projection a characterization in Virginia. 13 electoral votes. They're too early to call.
Before we even brought it to air.
And Donald Trump and Kamala Harris right now, that's too early to call. Trump
too
out
early to call.
Lead.
How many times have we heard that already?
This is one of the big battleground states, could be the biggest. 19 electoral votes, too close to
Don't watch this guy.
Wisconsin,
tell me why, please.
Here's where it looks right now. too close to call, a difference of...
I was just trying to be like culturally, you know, like acceptable and like look at someone from America and try and get an opinion on what Americans are thinking apart from like outside of the mainstream media. He called Palestine an inferior culture. Oh my God. And basically said they deserve... Whoa. But like, so he is politically conscious. He's not just like some random gamer or something. Yeah, I thought you'd mentioned that controversy. Oh, wow. Wow. You know what? It's something interesting. Like 4AS and me, we haven't gone here. Oh, maybe you have 4AS, I'm not sure. But I have not gone to the whole Palestine-Israel thing. I've stayed out of it. Like there's so many people talking about it, so much. And like it seems to be a big issue in this election. But like, yeah, I've just stayed away from it. You know that that's like the sad thing, like about this election. Like, no one's taking a stand against Israel here. Like, I don't know. Please correct me if I'm wrong, chat. But like, I don't see the Democrats, you know, stepping in and trying to get rid of, like what Israel is doing to the Palestinians at the moment. But like, I could be wrong. I definitely don't see Trump changing anything there.
50% of the vote is in, 49. He was at 68 in 2020.
Love
He's now
that
up to
name.
70. The other part where they do well in the other part of the state, in Green Bay, it's called the Bow. So yes, it's the Bow counties and the Wow. Bow Wow. I know that's pretty funny, but maybe it's not that funny. Anyways, Brown is Green Bay.
It'll pass.
It'll pass. Trump is 52%. He's up big time here, but again, only 33% of the vote is in, and there are a lot of Democratic votes in Green Bay as well. We're going to come down here to the O and Bow out of gaming. 54-57. Again, he's overperforming there. And then finally in Winnebago, 36%. I want to show two more counties you guys may have heard of, you may not have. Racine, these are suburbs of Milwaukee, getting closer to Chicago. These were counties that Trump flipped from Obama, and then he held them 4 years later. 15% in.
Right, let's go see what they're doing on Fox
That's a strong
News.
number for him. We
That'd
go
be
to
funny.
Kenosha.
In Pennsylvania. And Trump right now has just under a 3-point lead
All right, Austin.
in this.
Don't mean
Go ahead.
to cut you off here. We do have more of these now winning candidates stepping up to their election rallies and watch parties, including Maryland's Senator-elect Angela also Brooks there. Let's watch.
Let's watch.
Doesn't it feel good to be in Maryland tonight? Oh, yes. Well, first of all, to Alex, you know, she forgot to tell you one important part of that story.
Not as funny as I thought it would be, to be
She's the one who got on the
honest.
bus after I had to race after her first grade friends and said, well, we have...
I really thought, yeah, the Americans would be, the people on Fox would just be like way more outrageous. But I must be watching the wrong Fox stream.
credit to the absolutely unfailing God that I serve.
That's another thing that's really weird about American politics, like how religious they are. The God that I serve. Like, I don't know, just the separation of church and state. I don't know, man. It doesn't seem to really broadcast over there in the same way that it does in other liberal democracies across the world. They seem to put a lot of faith in their faith. And they're not too shy about letting it be known. It's not a problem. But like, you know, when it comes to kind of politics and running a country, whoa, that's crazy. I've got a green water bottle. That's mental. It's great for the green screen. It was always disappointing watching conservative media. It's mostly just boring, and it's only funny. No highlights. Yeah, well, I wish I'd thought of that earlier. Do U.S. elections count at night? That's a good question. Let me Google that. You know what? I'm going to ask the AI. Let's ask ChatGPT what it reckons. I have got a research assistant. I've got ChatGPT. I'm going to put the audio on while I'm typing so you guys aren't bored.
Foremost to the single most incredible, the baddest campaign team. Let me tell you. This team is incredible.
All right.
And they are led by the incomparable Sheila O'Connell, our campaign manager. Thank you so much to Sheila, who is what I love to call a super bad woman. Sheila led this, she flew this plane no matter what the winds were. against over $100 million that was spent against our campaign. And we're here tonight for every single person on this team.
All right, here's what ChatGPT said. Yes, in the U.S. elections, vote counting often continues overnight, especially in close races or heavily populated areas after the polls close. Local election officers begin processing and counting ballots, which can take hours or even days. Yeah, I've heard that. Some states report early and absentee ballot counts first, while others may release those. Yeah, but is this specifically for the federal? How do you feel about talking to ChatGPT about stuff? Have you guys tried that? Yes, this applies to the federal elections, including the presidential race, congressional seats, and Senate. It's carried out by local and state election officials, though, so there's not like a federal body. So like in Australia, we have the AEC that oversees that whole process. State handles their own procedures. That's interesting. Yeah, they're really like heavy on state autonomy over in America.
Maybe 400 or so thousand.
So we're not watching this guy.
If the current margins hold,
so
then that's a projection.
Always is a projection.
Yeah. And if we're down there,
and other data is that the Trump campaign is overperforming, doing very well with Hispanic voters and young men.
And young men.
Rogan army. It
Joe
appears to be
Rogan
real
army.
in a lot of these places.
Have you heard about this Joe Rogan thing?
No, absolutely. I think they're very excited by that, and they also see that they're overperforming in rural areas. I think they're trying to cut their losses in the urban areas and in some.
Yeah, Joe Rogan endorsed like Trump at the last minute, or something like yesterday, or something, and so that's obviously driven out these young men voters, these incels. Or whatever people describe them as. But yeah, like, so Joe Rogan has been quite influential. Yeah. So it's like Joe Rogan versus Taylor Swift, I guess, who's got more influence. Like, what a showdown. Like, talk about Clash of the Titans. And like, wouldn't you like to see that in an MMA fight, like a cage fight? Yeah, Joe Rogan versus Taylor Swift, and then they can do like kind of a musical number afterwards to compare it on that level. Yeah, every state and county does its own thing. Yeah, and yeah, they look after themselves in terms of voting, like looking after the vote. It's interesting because like you'd think for a federal level election you'd have a federal body looking after something, and then like you can get rid of these kind of claims that things have been handled in a bad way, and like they haven't taken things into consideration properly. They've even rigged things. You could cancel that out if you had like kind of a federal level body looking after the stuff. You have like a ubiquitous approach to things, but like whatever. The Americans, Americans. Are there any Americans in the chat? Anyone? Let me know if you are, because like your opinion at the moment is invaluable. Because I'm just not over there. I don't know how things are going down. But yeah, so wouldn't it be interesting? It'd be interesting to see who's got more power and influence, Taylor Swift or Joe Rogan. Yeah, he's bringing out the young male voters, and Taylor Swift is apparently doing the same with young women. Like I saw an interview with a guy before, and he was basically saying that his girlfriend forced him to go out and vote. Sorry, asked him nicely to go out and vote, and he felt like he should. U.S. debaters are like WWE, trash talk to each other. Yeah, they are. But like, there's a lot of trash. Just generally. Let's just put it nicely. I'll try not to. I'm in California now. It's only 7:30 p.m. Too soon to go to bed. Okay. Apologies. Thank you, David. Thank you for confirming. All right, let's go. Is there a better news source than David, or a better Twitcher? I don't know if I can add them now. I've gone live though. Damn.
Jimmy McCain and some of these big names, former Republicans, Jeff Flake, who are out there. She was trying to find those moms, those suburban women who just had enough with Donald Trump.
Stephen Joe Rogan with Chappelle Road doing this. See, wouldn't it be entertaining? And what heavy hitters. Clash of the Titans for it.
NBC News projects that 3 of the 5 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump. 3 of 5, you ask? That takes me to Tom. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Again, so Nebraska, remember, they give out their electoral votes for the popular vote, whoever wins the state. They also give them by congressional district. From what you just reported there, projecting one of the congressional districts, it's going to be District 3. It's going to go to Trump. There are 2 other congressional districts, 1 and 2, that we're still watching. Nebraska District 2, this is the big one that we've been watching. It's the swing district. The other one, Nebraska 1, usually goes red. We're still waiting.
So it looks like they break down the electoral college vote into areas. So that if they've got like 10 votes, they might give it to certain, break that 10 down to give it to certain districts. That's interesting. It's very interesting. It's very complex system. I'll tell you that much for free.
Just can't call it. The difference is 22,000 votes. That's what the difference was in 2020 when Biden won the state. So Democrats are in good shape right now. It's unclear how much of the vote is out. Let me see if I can come back and see if we can get how much of the remaining vote is out in this state. We can't check it just yet. As soon as we have a call on Nebraska 2, we'll bring it to you. It's 1 electoral vote. But in a razor-tight election, each electoral vote is important, guys.
All right, let's take a look at the battlegrounds. It's 10:35 in the east, 7:35 in the west, and we've got all battlegrounds closed right now and votes being counted. And
thank you. So, David, yeah, cheers. So it's only a couple of states that work like that. Everyone else votes in a block. Okay. Thank you.
Battleground state where both candidates spent a ton of time alongside Wisconsin as well, too close to call.
Nebraska
We're still counting about half the vote in there. Let's go down south, the Sun Belt path. Georgia, too close to call. Biden won it by a hair in 2020. Donald Trump trying to get it back tonight, too close to call. In North Carolina, we're still calling it too early to call, so we're waiting for more vote there, even though 84% of the vote is in. In Arizona, too early to call, too. We just had the polls closed there about 90 minutes ago. They got to wait a little bit before they can even start counting votes there. And same thing in Nevada. It'll be a while there. And in fact, if you mail your vote in Nevada, I think you can mail it. It could be land there as late as Friday, actually, and still be counted. Those are the rules in that state. So here's the road to 270, and it's being filled out along the familiar lines that we've all become
but there's
so
massive
familiar with
states
over these
that
last
haven't been
couple of
counted yet,
presidential cycles with those big question marks. Tom, let's go to Pennsylvania, because I think this is, we've often said this will be the ball game, and we're starting to get more vote, and maybe we could look at some of those bellwethers, like in Erie County, for example, or Lackawanna County. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're also seeing some outliers as well, Savannah. I want to show you what I'm talking about.
Is it just started or in the middle? What do you mean?
It's in the center of the state. This is red right now. 68% of the vote is in. Biden won this in 2020. Hillary Clinton won this in 2016. Why am I highlighting this county? Let me move the map over again. Center County. This is Penn State. This is Happy Valley. This is a university county. The Democrats should be on top right now. Again, there's 68% of the vote in. They could still catch up, but Trump is on top right now. I want to go back to eastern PA again, which has changed because a lot of people from New York and New Jersey have moved to the eastern portion of the state. We're talking about Northampton. This is one of those bellwethers, Savannah, you were talking about. It almost always picks the winner going back to,
like for
Kennedy years, I think.
For someone who's in Australia right now, 210.
Right now, Trump's on top.
Like that looks like it's game over, man.
Those things could change. Again, it's still early. We're not calling these counties
I don't know.
well.
Maybe like the states that haven't been counted yet are really crucial states. But like 210, like far out. That's getting dangerously close, isn't it? I really want to know what people think about like who's actually going to win or who they want to win. I'm assuming though, like an audience of mine would be largely Democratic voters. I'm just assuming. Like if you had to pick kind of lesser of two evils, all that usual banter and rhetoric kind of thing. I'm just assuming. But like, you know, socialists, communists, anti-capitalists, revolutionaries often have a, I guess, a inclination towards not voting and supporting bourgeois parliamentary politics. So I'm all for people that like and not wanting to get involved in the system in that regard. Okay, let's go to the live. And all right, let's see what's going on.
Vice
What they're
President
talking
Pence,
about.
that you're obviously a longtime Republican operative. You think there's not enough vote for her to make up that margin?
Well, there's still a lot out there. I'm just
Yeah.
saying all of these things start to add up. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. And so if you drop 40,000 votes in this state, maybe 6,000 or county, this 6,000 in another, next thing you know, you run out of options. I'll leave it to the brilliant minds in the decision desk to figure it out when that happens. I'm not nearly that good at math, but it's starting to look a little more encouraging. And when you see the Latino vote come in, when you see some of the closing of the gap with the young voters, it's starting to add up.
Well, let me just jump in on that, because there are several places, and we're starting to now at this point in the night get some trends across battlegrounds when it comes to exit polling, with all the necessary caveats that you have heard by now. And there's a few places where former President Trump is making improvements from his performance 4 years ago. It is Latino voters, as you talk about, Mark. It is voters under 30, as you talk about. It is independents. Doesn't mean he's winning them, but he's doing better than he was 4 years ago. Here's where her improvement is, and this is interesting. It's with seniors. It's with voters over the age of 65, and we're starting to see that trend for her.
You pointed to me when you said
No, I'm not saying anything.
and I just want to let everyone know that we noticed.
It deflected off your shoulder.
Full disclosure, we talked about it.
I just say that's a really good point. Trump may have a little more anti-war than Kamala, but that's it. Like, it's really hard to split them, isn't it? Yeah. Like, you know, talking about like evil American imperialism and like, you know, which arm do you want to go with? Like, far out. It's not easy. And especially when you look at things like that. Oh, who's less likely to go around the world killing other people? You know, it's a big factor. It's a big factor. Thank you, David. I'm so glad we've got a US correspondent in the chat at the moment. It's so helpful. Isn't the anti-electoral position, you can vote if you want, but as anti-electoralists, we're going to commit our time to the community. That's a good point, 4AS. And definitely one that I would expect of someone who's in a party, a registered party person. So, like, you know, don't get me wrong, voting is important if you want to make change, like, within the framework of the establishment. Completely get it. But like I'm just saying, like, I completely understand why people who are fed up with the bourgeois system altogether would abstain from any participation in it. So, but like, yeah, if you want to actually be involved and you want to make sure your nation or whatever is moving in the right direction, or your locality is moving in the right direction in terms of policy decisions, then you got to get involved. Absolutely. Got it. Yeah, why are you speaking from experience there, 4AS? It's tough, isn't it, being in a party and having to, like, you know, give your life force over to the party, and like things get crushed from the inside and the outside. Jerry Poppins, food reform, border control, anti-war sentiments, the better party is taking it this time. I don't know. Well, time will tell, Poppins. Time will tell.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that.
That's so 2024, Senator.
How's that?
Let's go to NBC News correspondent Allison Barber now in Gwinnett.
I want to know your opinion, actually, Mrs. Poppins. Do you know anything about this Twitcher?
Let's go to NBC News correspondent Allison Barber now in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Allison, how are things going there?
I would like to know your opinion if you've got one, Jerry, because so far chat is not happy with this particular Twitcher. Let's see if you recognize them or not. I don't know who they are, but like, they're naughty. They're very naughty.
Line by line with a Republican watcher, a Democrat watcher, and other election officials getting those votes up. But now they have those reported and based on.
Sorry, question was, who the hell is this Twitcher? If you can see this person up in the corner of the screen there. If you're I don't know, aware of who they are or not. I don't know. But apparently they are evil. So I picked the wrong American. I was just looking for a random American kind of like outside of the media establishment to try and get an understanding of what the feeling was. But yeah, apparently I've picked a bad one.
Had to be returned.
Those are the bags of votes for Kamala Harris.
Directions to the election workers. All of that stuff coming in now. It's coming in waves.
It says
the first
open
wave
if
of
we're
stuff that was
losing.
brought in from precinct captains on were the memory cards with the vote. That's something that election workers tell me is a way.
They're blue
I think
bags,
that's changed
guys.
over the years. They said they used to get everything, the election materials that had to be returned, provisional ballots,
Yeah,
and the memory
what about
cards
that?
with the votes all at once. And because it took a while to clean up,
I get douchebag vibes off a lot of Twitch streamers though. Like, I don't know if that just comes out when you're doing a live stream, but like, you know, this guy's been on the air for a long time now, so the douchebag is just simmering through. Stoner streamer dude looks wasted.
and they go out to the public, so they're still deep in that process right now.
You know what's really
but let's
weird?
go again to the back, because this is where
Destiny thinks Kamala.
I've heard a lot of the Americans talking about this, like the commentators that is that there are a lot of bomb threats going off in America at the moment around the polling stations. How weird is that? Like, I didn't realize how hardcore Americans were. So like when they're a bit like sketchy on like whether people are going to vote like in their interests or not, instead of like, I don't know, going out there and trying to change people's opinions while they're standing in line and handing out pamphlets or stuff, they call up or they email their local police department and like threaten a bomb scare or something like that, and that like scares people away from voting. Like, see, in the Australian system, right, voting is mandatory, and so like you don't have a lot of these problems in the sense that like everyone's going to vote anyway. So like you don't have to scare people away from polling stations by saying you're going to blow it up. Like obviously in these types of systems, the American system being like it's not mandatory to vote, and so like people don't need many excuses not to go and vote. And like if I thought I was going to be blown to pieces, like I wasn't that way inclined, I probably wouldn't be voting either. Like what a warped way of dealing with your political adversaries, right? Just being like, oh, I'm worried that like this election might not go the way that I want it to, so I'm just gonna like call up or like, you know, threaten to blow the place up, a polling station up. Like very, very warlike people, the Americans, from an outside perspective. Very happy to result to, you know, using weapons to settle differences. Alright, let's go to Fox. Come on, give me something entertaining, Fox. Seriously.
Trump, basically, his strategy of going all over the place, campaigning everywhere, taking all kinds of questions, even from adversarial media, it seems to have paid off.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think voters are responding to the
Isn't it weird, like, how sheltered Kamala has been for this entire race? Like, Trump, like, you can never get the guy to stop talking, and so, like, he's more than happy to get on and, like, speak to, you know, podcasters, like, news outlets, do interviews with whoever, anything to get in front of a camera. And, like, Kamala Harris, like, very, very, very sheltered. Like from, like, you know, a very surface level analysis of that, it's quite clear that, like, she is a party representative. Like, she was picked within the establishment, and, like, she was told what to do. She spent 2 full months without an interview. Incredible. Like, why would you not, like the one thing that politicians are supposed to be able to do is, like, speak to an audience and, like, hopefully, in addition to that, speak on the fly, right? Like, that's exactly what a politician does. They convince groups of people with their rhetoric, with their, you know, impassioned speech and argumentation that, like, you know, this is the way to go, vote for me. And, like, never let off the leash. Like, really, really structured environments that she was working in. Even the debate that they had, like, I'm pretty sure they were turning the mics off and on, so, like, they couldn't speak over the top of each other. Like, that was one of the death blows for Hillary Clinton when Trump was basically railroading her from the side when she was speaking, and he's just like, you know, cutting her off and all that sort of stuff, and just like, yeah, kind of demolished her in that arena. And they just didn't allow that to happen for Kamala Harris, which, like, okay, I'm all for respect. Like, if you're going to debate someone, show some goddamn respect. But can I just say, like, honestly, like, in the marketplace of ideas, like, you should be able to hold your own, especially if you want to be the leader of a country. And even more if you want to be the leader of the free world. Like, you really should be able to speak. Like, you know, that's one thing that, what is the cut off mice was part of the debate parameters. Yeah. So like, they literally said, okay, we'll let her off the leash. She'll be allowed to speak, but they have to be able to control the mics. They have to be able to keep tabs on things. But like I said, politicians should be allowed to speak over the top of each other, cut each other off, and like fight over like the bits in between the lines when it comes to their policy and their positions on matters, because it is those little nuances, it's those little things that like really give you a window into that person's psyche and what they're going to be like as a leader. And so like it's very strange. I just want to hear Trump's victory / concession speech. Yes. Whatever way it's going to be. Well, do you remember what happened last time when he had a concession speech? You know, it didn't go down too well. And it was very interesting how the political establishment in America mobilized around how Trump supporters and him kind of rallied around that his loss, basically, to Biden last time. All right, let's go back to Fox.
Tease this out, AG. There are quite a few competitive Senate races around the country: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. As you mentioned, it's not as competitive in Arizona as it once was. Montana, we are seeing that John Tester has a steep uphill battle. Is there really any path to the Democrats maintaining control in the upper chamber at this point?
Not with the way this map is going. You know, it's going to be very difficult, and I think you would need for the Senate candidates to really outperform Harris in state after state. You know, my guess right now is 52, 53 Republican seats, and that's really what you want if you're the Republicans, because, you know, it's very hard to maintain a unified caucus in the House or the Senate. So you want that margin to be a couple points higher than just a 50-50 split with Vance casting a bunch of tie-breaking votes. So, you know, it's really early to
Trump
tell
will take the Senate
races,
with 53
but
seats.
I'm less
Yeah,
confident
it's
in those
interesting,
than I am
isn't it?
in Trump right now. But, you know, I really do think
very, very, very interesting. Like how like their upper house is like going completely to the Republicans. The Senate. The most fascinating part is it was middle class people there rather than working class, blue collared working. Yeah. So it was really the labor aristocracy that were outraged. Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about the Capitol Hill riot incident, insurrection, some people will call it, and like how it was more like your middle class than your regular working class type people that went along to that. It just shows you like what type of second of the population, the demographic that is mobilized and rallied in a way that, you know, gets them onto the streets and like, you know, enraged, you know, like that's interesting. It takes a different type of energy to get kind of your labor aristocracy, as you've called it, 4AS, or your upper middle class bogans, as we would say in Australia, to get them onto the street and get them to, you know, smash some windows in your government buildings. Here's a good chance now for the House of Reps too. That's interesting. Hey?
Your faith in me, and you may or may not, over the course of the next 6 years, agree or disagree with this or that, but I won't embarrass you. I won't let you down. I won't cause you to lose a moment of sleep, and we will keep moving Virginia and this country and this country forward. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I won't embarrass you. Like, isn't that so good? Like, that's like one of, like, if you're accepting, if you're doing an acceptance speech in America and you're an old politician, you're like, I'm not going to embarrass you. And like, you know, because like there's a lot of stuff that American politicians do to completely embarrass themselves, from sex scandals to just being absolute geriatrics who can't speak properly in front of a microphone. But like, don't worry, rest assured, you voted for me, but I will not embarrass you. So good, politics.
It was sealed, but the actual flap there that opens up, it was not completely locked. So what they did is they got a bipartisan group together. They went through to all of the 13 tabulators, high-speed tabulators in this entire facility, and they went through and emptied them out and restarted the count of some 30,000 ballots. Now, despite that, they say that they're moving along fairly well. When you look around here, you see at each of these stations, the election workers, the election clerks are counting those ballots. And, you know, when you talk to operatives in the state, one thing that they're focused on is what will come from the vote here in Milwaukee. And I talked to a Republican operative who said he's, quote, feeling very good about what they're seeing on the Republican side. They say when you look at Dane County, that
yeah, it's a bit like that for us. Don't worry, I did not have sexual relations with her. I didn't do it. It's okay.
But when you look at the amount of vote that's here,
but we have irrefutable evidence that you did this.
Ballots that have yet to be counted, and we are still hours away from that being sent over to the county for the public to see. So it's expected to be a long night of counting here in Milwaukee.
All right, Shaq, thanks very much.
Let's go over to Tom Yamas, who's over at the big board. Couple of things. Let's look at North Carolina.
You got it.
Still too early to call. And how about Virginia? Yeah. It's a blue state. Haven't called it yet.
We'll talk about both those because both states have interesting things happening. So first off, 85% of the voting, if you're asking yourself, why is it too early to call? Why hasn't NBC News projected this race just yet? Because listen, there are still 875,000 votes that are out. So we're going to wait till we can make a clear projection there. I do want to highlight some things. I've been talking about Charlotte, Mecklenburg County all night long. This is where Democrats had to turn out the vote. This is where races are won and lost in the state of North Carolina, is in Charlotte. Clinton at 62, Biden at 66.7. Harris is at 65. Remember, she has to win this state because they lost it 4 years ago. She has to be doing better than Biden. And now I want to take you to the Black Belt. Again, these are the counties that there's not a ton of people, but they're largely African-American counties. And I'm going to go to compare this to 2020.
The race thing
again. I want you guys to watch these numbers. Remember, the number
Why
on
does
the
it
left,
matter?
It has to be higher. The number on the left has to be higher. So we're going to
like my only assumption here when they say like, oh, this is an African-American county, that they're assuming then that it's going to be a Democratic voting county. Like, you're basically profiling all African American people and saying they will vote this way, basically. Like, it's very, very peculiar for people that look outside to the inside of American politics to see how they analyze things. Oh, they're black, they must vote for the Democrats, like, kind of thing. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like, there's no individual agency going on there. Look at the color of your skin. You must be voting for this party.
In the Northern Virginia suburbs, this is the Democrats' sort of their sweet spot where they're going to drive up the votes. Also, Richmond County, a lot of African-American voters there, too, that could possibly vote Democratic. But listen, Republicans have been making inroads in there as well. We can take a quick gander. How much time we have? About a minute? 2 minutes? Now we're going to say goodbye. We'll come back. We'll dig into those northern suburbs in just a minute, Savannah.
Let's do, because, you know, northern suburb resident Chuck Todd says you can't.
Yeah, look, I get it's a thing, but, like, it's very, very peculiar. Okay? It shouldn't be that much of a thing. It should be based on geography, like where you are in the state, aligning with different, like, issues and stuff like that. Monolith. It's definitely in the lexicon, isn't it? This monolith. I've heard a number of the political commentators talking about this.
Never dared put one up there, so I think there was a little more of an emboldened activity, but you know you're not going to win that area. But I think this does point to what we were talking about we see going on in Philadelphia, which we see going on in some of the other Charlotte areas. She's underperforming in the metro areas, which is where she needs to overperform.
I think when it's all counted, when everything comes in Northern Virginia and Chuck's not here, so I'm a little nervous. But I think she'll end up winning Virginia by a comfortable margin. And I think when you actually analyze the data, what you're going to see is there
When you
was
consider
more
the Democratic
enthusiasm
Party
in
and the
rural
KK
areas
have,
of Virginia than
yes,
there were.
yes.
There was
Like I was talking about it before you got on Jerry Poppins, but like the Democratic Party, or like the fact that historically the Americans have played race games in order to divide the majority of the population up so they don't come together to fight against like the establishment, like the political establishment or the economic establishment, all that sort of stuff. They have sowed the seeds of this division on purpose in order to divide the working class. Like, it's incredible how they are almost proud of this metric. Like, they use it. They actively go out to split populations up to make it as if they are one big voting block, that kind of thing. Like, that is, I think, rather strange to kind of, I don't know, to put up on a pedestal and, like, you know, idolize that, like, you know, oh, let's go to the Latino vote. Like, racial gerrymandering. It's a bit like that. It's very much like that. Oh, if you're a good, like, black person, or if you're a good Latina, like, you know, you will vote like this way, kind of thing. Like, it really, like, you know, yeah, talking about segregating populations. Like, they talk about like having gotten rid of and like gotten over the whole segregation thing in the States, but like, you know, on paper maybe, but like, yeah, look, I've got someone coming in here saying 113 Harris to 210 Trump, and this is the electoral college votes. So like, she's closing in. Oh, here we go. Oh, 214 to 245. So she's closed the gap a little bit. Oregon, what are they saying? Too close to call.
Close to call 11.
Oh my God, the timing.
Same
Too
story
close
in
to call.
Michigan, too close to call at this hour, with about
What a
third of the vote
soundbite.
counted there.
I should change the title of this live stream to Too Close to Call.
You knew it would be a tight election. The polls all showed it, and that's certainly being borne out tonight. 60% of the vote in there. In Georgia, it is too close to call. Getting closer to that final number there, but we're still, the margins are just too close to make a call in that presidential race. Same thing in North Carolina.
If you're still in the chat, David, it'd be interesting to know you're on the West Coast. But like, that's the vibe that I get from American politics as well, is like the West Coast is like massively blue, or has been traditionally. And so, yes, a lot of the electoral college votes, which like they have a massive section of electoral college votes as well, will be going her way, at least.
Percent of the vote is in. I mean, they're doing their job there, so congrats to them. Maricopa County, this is the big swing county that we're going to be watching here. This is going to be about 60% of the vote in the state of Arizona. So important. If you want to win Arizona, you got to win Maricopa. You can see Trump won it in 2016. Biden won it in 2020. Tonight, with 50% in, Kamala Harris is on top right now. Phoenix, one of the fifth largest city in the country, one of the fastest growing areas in the country. Something else interesting about Maricopa, it's not so much people from other states moving there for the jobs, it's people from all over Arizona moving to this area. You have Mesa, Tempe, Scottsdale, a lot of growth there. We're going to go to this other county here, Pima County. Savannah, you've heard of this county? Maybe, maybe not. 50% of it is in. This is Tucson. This is a Democratic stronghold, but it's not like Cambridge, Massachusetts, right? It's not 60-40 split. It sometimes is, but not really. Tonight, she's doing well. She's turning out the vote there, about 30% Hispanic in Pima County as well. It's on the border. Just next door to Pima is Yuma. Now, this is majority Hispanic, an interesting county, but this is a place where Republicans can run up the score. Trump overperforming right now, only 35% of the vote is in. Arizona, still very, very early, 11 electoral votes. As we get information, we'll sort of dissect it and figure it out, but it's going to be a while before we call Arizona, Savannah, as you know.
All right, thank you, Tom. We got our panel here. We got
Okay, so I got another one coming in.
Chuck, what
So
are you making of
the
what we're seeing,
ABC
what the trend
is
lines
reporting that it's 179 for Kamala Harris and 214 for Trump. So that's like a massive difference to what we just saw here. Like, there was 145 to Kamala here, 179 for Kamala. That's a massive difference.
The total turnout in Georgia than what we saw. And as we'd been saying, and we'd seen this, higher turnout was always going to be better for Trump. not
Very,
there's always been this
very
pre-Trump era
early.
conventional wisdom used to be Democrats would perform better, but he has the
Yeah,
sort
it's
of,
interesting, isn't it? So, Jerry Poppins, tell me your view. Is the NBC, is this a more of a left-leaning news outlet then? Because like it does, I'm getting this vibe from them that like it's more along the American liberal side of things. There's a live update on Google with the info. If you search 24 election, live update on Google. All right, I'm going to check that out.
he obsessively made sure people didn't vote early. 2, he didn't. 1 was at 16, and then it's this one. So you may be onto something, but I do think the bigger story is their ability to expand the electorate. He used to have a ceiling of about 47, 48. That's not the case tonight. He expanded it another point or 2. That's significant. As we know, in a razor-thin environment, even if you're just adding 50,000 to your voter rolls, well, that's the difference between winning and losing. Half the blue wall. I heard your Dallas Cowboys thing. You know, I mean, there you go, right?
Want me to do it again?
Yeah, I mean,
it also works for Lambeau Field. That the last 4, literally, the election.
a better stadium to pick. You don't want to have a losing team.
Yeah. Oh
right?
my God.
The losing record.
Here we go. No, just that our elections. Our last election was decided by 80,000 voters in 4 states that would fill a
But
football
can we also
stadium.
remember one other thing here? Because she was trying to do something as a sitting vice president that had never been done before. Succeed an unpopular president. Okay? Hubert Humphrey tried to do this, and he came 1 percentage point short. It was a very close election. The electoral vote wasn't close, but it was a very close election. But he came up short. Al Gore tried to do this. While Bill Clinton's presidency was popular, Bill Clinton, the individual, was not. We all know he came up 537 votes short, as Lester will tell you over and over again. So the last sitting vice president to win was George H.W. Bush, with an outgoing president that had a 60-plus approval rating. He was at 41%. I mean, that is, you are asking somebody to overperform in a way that we may find out was politically impossible.
This sounds a little bit like a postmortem, so I want to make sure we
No, and I don't think we're there.
We have not called.
And let me give you the view from the Harris campaign.
And by the way, they know if they win, it's going to be like this. Like, their path is razor thin.
That's exactly what they're saying. There's this new memo that is out now from the chair of the Harris campaign that was sent to staffers, obtained by our Monica Alba and our team that covers the Harris camp. And this is exactly the point, right? Which is why I wanted to jump in here on this. They say that the closeness of this race is what we prepared for all along. They still see data trickling in from Sunbelt, but all along they knew it was going to be blue wall. I mean, listen.
NBC has especially centered itself in the last month. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Maybe it's why, because like a lot of the streamers that I was looking at, I thought that was an interesting shift from my view. At least, yeah, it is. And like a lot of the streamers that I've been looking at that were covering it recently, they've all been centered on this media outlet. So I thought that this was a little bit more middle of the road and would give a little bit more of an objective kind of opinion on what's going on. Like, if you can be objective in all the craziness that is politics.
Winner there. In our road to 270, you see
153
214 for Donald Trump. Harris
significantly. It's a big jump.
The big prizes, still no calls. We continue to wait.
Interesting that memo is focusing on the blue wall. That's all but saying they're not expecting a North Carolina victory or a Georgia or...
Those are 2 states. I'm just looking at this on my computer. I don't see either of those 2 states mentioned here. They do talk about Nevada and Arizona. It's going to be a bit, but the bottom line is they feel like this race is not going to come into focus until the early morning hours.
The fascinating thing about what Hallie just read, Chuck says this feels like 2016. That's almost verbatim a memo that we got in 2016 saying we're focused on the blue wall, everyone's focused on the blue wall, no one panic. And we have a lot more vote to count. So I want to be very cautious in saying this, but tonally it is fascinating that is the message that they're sending.
Well, not for nothing. They did their last...
Well, isn't that interesting? Because like no one was able to call 2016. Like no one would have guessed it. I remember like the betting or something at the time was something like 100 to 1 when it all started for Trump to win it, and like you were just watching it go throughout the day, dwindle down to like, you know, he was $1.70 or something to win. And like, so if they're saying that they're seeing patterns with what was happening in 2016, and like no one was predicting that at the time, like, you know, you got to question what is going on in the States. Because like a lot of the feedback that we're getting in the mainstream media in Australia is all just like, you know, it's in the bag kind of thing for Kamala. Or like at least the Australian media for the large part, apart from Sky News, has been really pushing Kamala kind of hard. I think that there's kind of a sentiment out there that, like, you know, they really just didn't want, like, the Australian establishment just doesn't want to deal with Trump, and so, like, they really try to push that sentiment. Speaking of betting, Trump is paying $1.04 on Sportsbet. That's a really crazy indication. Like I said, not that, like, betting agencies do very well when it comes to predicting politics. Like, look at what happened in 2016. They didn't call that one very well at all. But, like, it's hard to call. But, like, $1.04, like, that's not a big payout if he wins. Jeez. Do you know what they're putting on? What odds they've got on for Kamala? Kamala. Yeah, I want to see an election map. That's what I want to see. I've been able to find one yet, a good one anyway.
Well, therefore, on these apps, we're served content straight from and straight about the former president, and we are hearing so much right now. I'm hearing that in lines in Arizona. Gotti was mentioning that earlier. It's so much. It was because I heard him on a podcast. It was because of this thing I saw on TikTok. I also heard from a voter in almost every single thing.
Let's look here. Now this one's a bit different. Harris 162, Trump 246. That's a bit different. $11. $11. Did I hear that right? Jerry Poppins. Damn. Wow. Well, if you think Kamala's got in the bag, you jump on your betting app of choice right now and put some money on Kamala, because, like, that's a really, really good payout if you think that she's going to win. That's huge. Oh, thank you. And that is, we have David, our foreign correspondent, and we also have Jerry Poppins, who is our betting correspondent. Not particularly working with any betting agency at the moment, but, like, hoping to get some revenue. I'm sure you are, Jerry Poppins, in one day in the future. I'm not a betting thing on that lady. She isn't winning anything. Aha, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Well, like, look, this is kind of edging us very much closer, like this map here. Taking side bets, though. I'm sure you are. Yeah, Graham. Right. Nothing like a good old side bet. Now, look at this. 246 to 162. That was a bit different to what our news outlets are telling us.
Gap is interesting, but also, as we've alluded to here on the table, the education gap is also becoming such an interesting storyline here, as Chuck talks about kind of a realignment in this moment and where we are. That's another thing to be watching for tonight. Again, it is 11:11 Eastern time, but there's still plenty of vote to come in.
I want to go to Tom right now. Tom, I'm looking at Wisconsin. Looks like 62% of the vote in there. You're picking up some things. Share them with us.
Yeah, too close to call right now. Trump on top 50%. The difference is 39,000. Remember, the last two elections in Wisconsin, presidential elections, 20,000 votes was the difference between both candidates.
In the Senate, the VP gets to vote if there's a tie. Plus, you don't have to vote with your party if you don't want. They can kick you out. Interesting. There's your answer. 4IS. Party solidarity, eh? And we're all about solidarity on this channel.
Biggest population center in the entire state of Wisconsin. Right now, 54% of the vote is in, so a lot of that vote is still out. It's probably going to be a little bit later till we can call Milwaukee by itself. Biden was at 69. She's down about 2 to 3 points. Again, this would be concerning for Democrats. But look, there's still a lot of vote out in Milwaukee. Door County, if you've been following the presidential race at all, everyone's been talking about Door County in Wisconsin. It's this peninsula that shoots out into Lake Michigan. The last 6 statewide elections, presidential elections, I should say, they've picked the winner. This is a good sign for Kamala Harris. She's on top there, overperforming Biden just slightly. 95% of the vote is in. Again, Door, if we bring it out to past elections, it almost always picks the winner in the state of Wisconsin. So that's a good sign for her because it's a bellwether. I do want to check in some of these Democratic
it's a good sign for her. You're right, Jerry Poppins. Like, you can feel the bias seeping through.
We don't have any data there. What else we have? I think here in La Crosse, this is another Democratic stronghold, 92% in. Biden was at 53. She's 55, I should say. She's slightly underperforming. So listen, still a lot of vote. Let me see how much vote is still out. Still about 40% of the vote. But here's what's tough for Democrats in Wisconsin. Of the battleground states, each of those blue wall states is different. But of all the battleground states, Wisconsin is the widest. So they can drive up the margins with at least African-American voters and some Latino voters that are going to stay loyal to the Democrats in this election. What they can do, there's about 100,000 college students in the state of Wisconsin, and they usually fare better, much better with those university students. We're going to have to wait and see, as we say right there, too close.
God damn it, university students.
We got a big projection to give right here. This is the Ohio Senate race. It was a hotly...
Not interested in the Senate. Yeah, look, this is an interesting kind of idea that, like, I heard them talking about before, the political commentators. Like, they're trying to break up. You know how I was complaining about them breaking up, like, their electorates into, like, racial demographics and talking about how everything pins on what type of, like, race that you fit into. They're also speaking about, like, educational disparities between people. So, like, they were breaking down before the fact that college-educated white women are more likely to vote for Kamala Harris, and non-college educated white women are more likely to vote for Trump. So, like, I think what they were saying in a roundabout way was, like, the higher educated you are, then you're more likely to vote for Harris or the Democrat nominee, and, like, the less educated you are, you're going to be voting for someone like Donald Trump. So, like, which is, you know, largely, I think, offensive to kind of break people down along their lines of education, because, you know, university education doesn't actually represent anything more than kind of like you trying to get into a specific field, like a specific field in the workforce. And, like, it's not really representative of anything larger than that. Like, it's not an indication of intelligence levels, if that's what they're trying to insinuate there. But, like, you know, I think the implication of what they're saying is quite clear. Yes, that, like, yeah, dumber people vote for Trump, or dumb white women vote for Trump, and, like, smart white women vote for Kamala Harris, which is, like, you know, it's a pretty big statement to say. And this is why I see there's a bit of a problem with the analysis being broken along these levels. While it's interesting to look at demographics and stuff like that, like making those broad and sweeping kind of calls and, like, pegging people into groups it's difficult to run with, and, like, it really adds to the general polarization and identity politics that are tearing the American nation to pieces. It's something that I've wanted to talk about, like, a lot, like, more generally, but, like, you know, whatever. We'll leave that for another time. I think those numbers are different to the two trackers that I have right up now. Both mine have Trump ahead by a tiny margin. She'll win Wisconsin, though. Interesting.
House has subpoena power. Yeah. And so if the House is of the same party, you can navigate Washington a lot easier.
Okay, let's see what's going on with Fox.
I'm here because costs are still too high. And I understand how hard it is to work just to bring home enough to pay the bills, to pay the rent, and maybe, just maybe, save up a little. I understand the dignity of work, of trying to put 40, 60, 80 hours together to try and make a life for your kids.
40, 60,
but there are
80?
too many people in Washington, D.C. who...
Has anyone ever worked an 80-hour work week? Like, honestly? Like, have you? I'm asking you. Like, that is immense. Like, you're literally working, like, 10 hours more a day. Like, literally. Like, because you have to leave some time to sleep, I'm assuming. An 80-hour work week. Wow.
It's already coming through and clear. We fought for Arizona. Because of that, we are going to win.
Yeah, like talk about some dystopian Marxist stuff. Like Marx was like heavily talking about like how crazy the work week was for like workers in the Industrial Revolution, where they work 16-hour days. They'd sleep at the factory on the floor somewhere. I know it's bringing Das Kapital back. Like America is so dystopian, it's not funny. Like if this guy's not exaggerating and saying like 60 and 80-hour work weeks, like that is some like Industrial Revolution shit. Like we are going back and like destroying 150 years worth of labor laws and like progress if we are literally saying that people are working like 80-hour work weeks. Like I am no maths genius. I know it's not a big problem, but I'm just going to get my old calculator out here. Like that is just, that's just insane. I don't actually believe it. What's that? 80 divided by 7. Yeah, 11 hours if you work 7 days a week. If you have 1 day off, that's like 13-hour days. If you have 2 days off, you're working 16 hours a day. 16 hours a day. That's what like Marx was talking about. Like they brought in laws 150 years ago in Britain to fight this sort of stuff off, because like people were dying and they weren't able to replenish the population fast enough to then continue to feed the working class. That's crazy. North Carolina just called. She's red. Wow. Jerry Poppins, like, can I just say, like, you are so down with what's going on. This is incredible. I need you on the research.
To work that overnight shift, and for the kid sleeping on the.
Yeah, you're right, Farias. What happened there? Like, you destroy the workers' movement, the union movement, significantly enough, and you've got this happening. That's crazy. America is just such a complex place, man. Like, so much wealth going around in that nation, and like it's just not with the people at all.
At state, but a very confident, optimistic person there speaking at that rally there in Arizona. I do want to put up just the number of votes, the sizable margin he leads over Kerry Lake at this point. Some 7-point lead right now, so no call as of tonight. He admitted that such, but a sizable lead for him this evening. But we do want to get you out to some calls in terms of the race for the White House in some very key battleground states. This one in North Carolina going in favor of Trump, as Trump takes the key battleground state of North Carolina. 50% to 48%. Just over 100,000 votes as Trump, the AP calling this almost 90% of the votes tallied at this point. Another battleground state not called at this point, but in favor of the former president in a significant way, 51% to 48.3% as well. And we want to put up this, a post from our Fox 5 team. Eric Perry saying, breaking, Donald Trump has an insurmountable lead with a number of votes outstanding. That a quote from the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, during a late night briefing. So some big news.
So I've got
and let's continue on. Let's bring in my colleague right now, Austin Westfall, to discuss.
You can see that I've got Sportsbet here as, what is it? Donald 104, Kamala Harris $11. Yeah, you were right. Miss Poppins, that's crazy. No, $10, but still, it seems to be changing a bit. Fluctuation. Yeah, that's interesting. That's mental.
There's been a lot of smiling faces.
We have been
keeping an eye on both of these watch parties. Here's how
are going on about now. What's his name? Volsh. Yeah, he's been so hardcore about like pushing Kamala Harris. Interesting to see what he's saying right now.
Harris still at 179. Let's take a look. Solidly red at this point. We've been saying all night, Trump's easiest path to victory is North Carolina, which he has now. Georgia, which with 90% of the votes in, he has almost a 3-point lead. So, North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, So if he gets these 3 states and every other state falls the way we expect it to, that means that former President Trump will become president again. The only time that's ever happened before was Grover Cleveland. He was the 22nd and 24th president of the United States. So North Carolina getting called. I'm watching Pennsylvania closely now. I'm watching Georgia closely now.
Right, so this
Again,
is Fox. So like, I don't know if this is
have been counted in Georgia.
Kind of a legit perspective on this, because obviously they're biased towards Trump. But like, I don't know. It seems pretty logical what they're saying.
But I do think that I think
drinking
it's
alone,
pretty
John.
early. I think that's fine. That's fine. I think it's pretty early to be drawing conclusions based on the exits and trying to figure out what happened with specific demographics. I think where we're at is this was always going to be close. It is close right now. I think there was some hope based on vibes that perhaps this wouldn't be as close based on some late polling and some late momentum and a terrible event at Madison Square Garden. Could we hope that maybe this night wouldn't be as long? And the answer is no. The polls largely were showing a very tight race, and that's what we're kind of living through.
Dan, do you think it will ultimately come down to Pennsylvania? I mean, that certainly has been what's been telegraphed for all of these months.
It is the essential state, because if Georgia and North Carolina, she does not win, and there's still a lot of outstanding vote in Georgia. It's once again a narrow path. But if those do not end up in her column, there is no math without Pennsylvania.
Crazy stat. Jerry Poppins.
Wisconsin with Arizona. You can replace Michigan with
Crazy
Arizona.
stat. She hasn't won or is leading any swing state. Really? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Presidential call. Let's see where we are. NBC News.
I love the
now
graphics they have. They're so sick. Whew, we just swept over the White House.
Electoral votes in the state of Washington. Here's how it breaks down right now. A difference of about 472,000, 473,000 votes. In the road to 270, that leaves Harris with 165, 214 for Donald Trump now. Let's go to Republicans' Mike Dubke, White House Communications Director under former President Trump, and Sarah Fagan, a former aide to George W. Bush. Mike, first of all, give me your thoughts here. We've had no calls in battleground states so far. Is this a matter of viewing pieces through a microscope right now to try to understand where this is going?
Well, it sounds that way from the Harris campaign, but I want to stick with the vibe comment that John Lovett just made, because I really do think that what we're seeing now is this coming to fruition, this vibe versus issues election that we've had. The Harris campaign really put on the vibes, the joy, and all of that, and I think the Trump campaign tried to stick to issues, immigration, inflation, instability around the world. And if you look at the exit polls that you all have been talking about today, you really see that Americans think that the country's on the wrong track. We think the economy, we were better off 4 years ago than we are today. And when you look at the way...
Yeah, correspondent from the area. Yeah, it is very much like that, Jerry Poppins. You've missed your calling. You've missed your calling, mate.
Michael, let me just ask you just to bear with me for a second, because we have another projection we're going to put up here on the screen. And this is the state of Connecticut. NBC News projected that Kamala Harris will win in Connecticut when all the votes are counted. 7 electoral votes. There's the breakdown right now, about a 10-point difference between the two of them. And here's where it takes us in the road to 270. Donald Trump standing at 214. Harris now with 172 electoral votes.
Vibes versus issues. Yeah, I was just thinking that as well.
Let me turn to you.
Yeah, it is an insane talking point. So like they're saying, like this guy's trying to say that they're coming in, the Democrats that is, are coming in riding the wave of like nice and happy sentiments, while Donald Trump is sticking to the hardcore issues that real Americans want to talk about. Like, it is an interesting way to analyze the campaign. Like, there's been a lot of laughter and happiness and hugs from Harris's campaign, and like, it seems that the Republicans have very much stick to their message. I wonder what happened. What happened, like a pandemic and those wars in Ukraine. Yeah. Everything has gone to shit in the last 4 years. Well, there's been a lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
To be counted, we should point out that these blue wall states tend to be
red mirage. You know, they go red,
Red
and then
mirage.
they tend
I've
to
heard
go,
of this phenomenon.
the race narrows as these
As
big
they
urban
vote
areas come in
up.
later.
Yeah.
But when you just look at the underperformance of Kamala Harris and the overperformance of Trump, it's going to be pretty hard, I think, for her to catch him.
Yeah, the Harris team is saying they believe
Whoa,
they
that's a big
overperformed
concession.
in Philadelphia. Does that give you pause?
I don't see where they're saying that. Now they're looking, I'm sure, at precinct analysis, and we're looking at a county total, so we should give that caveat. But you know, Joe Biden got 80% of the vote in Philadelphia County, and she's not running at 80%. I think she's, last I looked, was at 77 or 78%. So that's a pretty significant difference when a race is as close as it
she's
is.
struggling to keep it together, that's for sure. Yeah. They know, and they can't hide it anymore. Yeah, I know. It feels like that, right? Yeah, she is. She is. Because the other guy was the representative from the Republicans. So I think she was a Democratic representative. That's the balance that the mainstream media gives us, right? Here, let's just have one of each to talk about it.
Remember, she gets to the White House, even if she loses Georgia, North Carolina, the entire Sun Belt, she still gets there. Let's talk about Georgia, though. Let's find out where we are there in the Peach State. Still too close to call for NBC News right now. 91% of the vote is in, but let's talk about where the vote remains. Look at, okay, the giant circles, remember those giant bubbles? That's the vote that still is outstanding. We're still waiting on this vote to be counted. And we know the exact number, or we can estimate the exact number. We think it's going to be about 487,000 votes. There's still almost 500,000 votes out in Georgia. Still up for grabs here. Let's make some comparisons here. Remember, I told you Harris has to drive up the vote in the Atlanta metro area. 50% of the vote is going to come from this area right here. First county, Cobb County, she's performing just like where Biden is, slightly better. Fulton County, performing a little bit lower, but slightly, and there's still 7% of the vote out in Fulton, where Atlanta is exactly. Gwinnett County, 80%'s in. Look, she's holding the same marks of where Biden was. She's overperforming in Douglas County as we move further south. Look, she's almost exactly where
it's
Biden
really
was,
focused on Harris,
of Atlanta.
Isn't
That's
it?
good news in overperforming
This
in
media
Rockdale
perspective
County.
here.
But if
I'm
Democrats
wondering
want to
if
expand the map,
Trump
we're not
was
seeing that
behind,
tonight.
if
A place
they'd
like
really be
Cherokee, we're
focusing
gonna
on
see if
him
they
and
can make inroads there, just north of Atlanta.
they focus
It
on the
touches those
person
ring
that's
counties.
running in behind.
Trump was at
I wonder if that's
68%
just
in
how
2020. Tonight he's at 69.
they do things
and
here.
they've almost got all the vote counted there. I want to move down, though, because there is something interesting happening in the Black Belt of Georgia. I was talking to you guys about the Black Belt of North Carolina earlier and how
What
she was
is the Black
underperforming there.
Belt?
Remember, this was Biden's number. This is her number.
That better not be like a euphemism for like black people.
African American, 52%, 50% for Kamala Harris. This is a rural county. Trump is overperforming here. We go to another rural red county, overperforming here. We come down here to Doherty County. She's slightly overperforming Biden there. But again, if she wants to win the state of Georgia, she's got to be doing better than Biden. It seems like she could be doing that in Atlanta. The numbers are good for her right now in the metro region, but it's still really too close for us to call here in Georgia. Guys, I'm
Too close to call.
Okay, Tom, thank you so
Too
much. I want
close
to
to
go to
call.
Chuck because, Chuck, we were talking about Donald Trump getting new voters, people that didn't vote in 2020, and those voters breaking for him. And you're seeing some pretty astounding.
Yes, the old Rust Belt. Might be the same thing. Yeah, I hope so. They really just make everything about race. Oh my God.
The remaining probably 2-1. That's like a reasonable thing. I mean, Georgia's probably going to be decided by 4 or 5 digits.
And where the vote is outstanding,
exactly.
you think there's a shot?
I think we will be. I think we might be sticking around Georgia for a little while. Just it does. If you're them, you can't totally.
All right. Well,
write it
you
off.
might be
There's
sticking
a
around
path.
Georgia for a while, but I am not.
Our pollsters.
No,
did some
it's
quick
black
noted
counties,
some,
rural counties
comparisons to
with lots of
2020.
black
Just
people.
Simply Trump margins.
Whoa.
These are not in the battleground states, but it gives you a hint of.
Damn, man. Far out. Could you imagine, like, us, like hearing that stuff in Australia? Like, oh yeah, we're just getting in the Indian vote now in Blacktown. We'll just see how that goes. That should be really telling about which way this election is going to swing. It's such a foreign idea. I don't mean to say that Australian culture is completely homogenous. Like, you know, there's very, very multicultural areas, but we just don't break it up like this. But I guess because of segregation in America, there is a lot of kind of race distribution along the geographical lines that I've been talking about. Like, it really should come down to geography, I think, more than anything else. But like, yes, I guess people have been kind of pushed and segregated into certain areas, so it kind of makes sense. But like, yeah, it's weird. It's a very strange metric.
States, but it may be spots of it everywhere.
Very telling as well about some of the underlying issues with American culture.
Or still saying, look, we could still win this thing. We can hold on to the blue wall, and that's absolutely accurate because we're still tracking the vote. But one Democratic lawmaker, sort of to the point that Chuck is making, saying, if this race does not
$11. I'm checking those bets. $11.
This person saying there needs to be a hard look at what went wrong and potentially
Kamala
really
Harris is paying $11 to Trump's $1.04. It's a big difference, man. Massive difference. The culture shock is real. It is. It is. All right. Thank you very much for your time today. I have to duck out. It's been quite the journey. They're going to be counting for a long time, but like, we're starting to see kind of a definite trend going on here. So thank you very much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for joining in the chat. It's actually been quite fun. Like, I was watching this by myself before, and I was like, look, I'll just get on the live stream and see if anyone has some thoughts on this. And it's been really, really good to share your thoughts. Thank you. Especially a big shout out to our foreign correspondent, David, for feeding us ignorant Australians with some good inside information. Thank you very much for our political correspondent, Jerry Poppins, for the regular updates, and for RAS for tech support. So everyone else, if I have missed you, I don't mean it on purpose, but thank you very much for joining in. Like, subscribe, comment, you know the score, and I am on Patreon, so please go over there, join for free. I just want to get you over so we can start a community over there. So if you've liked this stuff, go over to Patreon, link in the description, and join for free, become part of the community. If you can provide some financial support, by all means, but like, at least join our community. And as Jerry Poppins is saying now, eat poop. And I will leave you with that solid message on this day that will define the trajectory of the entire planet. Thank you very much. And please remember, I am, you are, we are a MysterE. Don't forget it. Thank you.